Good morning, St. Francis. Good morning, people of God. It is Friday, the 9th day of February, 2024, Friday of the 5th week of the year, the 5th week in Ordinary Time. Coming to you this morning from Silver Spring, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C., not far from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, here at Holy Name College, which is the house of our first-year friars, our postulants. This is where they come to learn about our Franciscan life and be able to get ready to enter into novitiate, their second year, in which they will learn about Francis and everything else Franciscan. This used to be the House of Studies. I think I've said this before, for when we studied here in Washington, D.C. This is where I lived in studying theology before my ordination. It is named Holy Name College because it was part of Holy Name Province. Now that we are Our Lady of Guadalupe Province, it still retains its name as its legacy. And so because it is 5 days until Ash Wednesday, remember 5 days till Ash Wednesday, it's time to learn about Lent. And I think that I did this for Advent and Christmas, so I come here to talk about Lent with these postulants, with our first year guys, and so I'm doing that these next couple of days. There's our great bell tower right over there, nice place to be today. Our readings for today, our readings on this Friday the 5th week of the year, continuing the saga of Solomon and David and their family and the kingship and whatever happens. So remember yesterday that God basically said to Solomon, because you allowed your wives to bring in all their gods and goddesses and disrespected my covenant and did not allow me to be able to be your God, I'm going to now take away your kingship from you, and I'm going to give it not necessarily to your son, but to a servant of yours. And again, your sons will have trouble who succeed you, because you are not listening to my covenant and not obeying it, and you're deciding to go off on your own with these other gods and goddesses. Remember, God is very jealous. God is a very jealous God, and God kind of gets vengeance, in the Old Testament for not listening to Him, not allowing God to be the God God has to be, for Israel. And so what happens today is that a man named Jeroboam basically is stopped by one of the prophets whose name I can't remember. It's not Abijah. It's something. It begins with an A. But stopped by one of the prophets, and the cloak that this prophet is wearing is torn into 10 pieces. And the prophet says to Jeroboam, who was Solomon's servant, "You are now going to be the leader of 10 of these tribes, the 10 tribes of the north, basically the northern part of Israel." And again, seeking division, seeking secession from the kingdom, and establishing his own kingdom. And why is this happening? Well, because Solomon's son, Rehoboam, whose name rhymes with Jeroboam, but they are not related at all by blood. Well, they kind of are, but not really. Rehoboam is ready to succeed David, ready to succeed Solomon, his father, and he wants to put together these harsh policies that would basically rob the north of a lot of its wealth and a lot of its power, a lot of its influence, and kind of concentrated in Jerusalem. And so this is, and the North is angry about that, and the North refuses these policies and refuses to allow, Rehoboam to do these kinds of terrible things, and so they're kind of in revolt against Rehoboam. And so what happens is, again, this servant Jeroboam, rightly takes away, these 10 of the tribes to basically say, we're not going to listen, to you anymore. We're not going to have you as our king, and another kingdom is set up within this, and division ensues between the kingdoms of Israel, in the kingdom of Israel, between a kingdom of Israel and a kingdom of Judah. The kingdom of Judah will be led by Rehoboam, Solomon's heir, but in the northern kingdoms by Jeroboam. And what happens within all of this, though, is the fact that the northern kingdom eventually will succumb to the Assyrians, another of the peoples, and they are carted off into exile and never seen or heard from again. So again, the sadness and the destruction that is caused, by this division. And a division, remember always, again, these 10 tribes, that Jeroboam takes, the 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin that remain with Rehoboam. These tribes were not just isolated, peoples. They were family. They were the sons of Jacob, again, who went into exile and came out of exile and established Israel, under God's leadership. And now this sort of familial squabble, which in many ways it is, because again, a lot of these Israelites are related to each other, now brims over into sadness and division. And again, what's said says again it says at the end of this passage that that Israel continues, to fight against itself to this day. Now again, the writer is writing about the day in which he was writing, but it still is true today. That there is nothing but division, and there's nothing but animosity and a lot of antagonism and sadness and terror that happens in Israel today because of the inability to talk, of the inability to understand each other, the inability to listen to what it is that God wants people to do, that God needs us to do, to be the people that God has chosen. In the gospel today, Jesus again heals a man who is deaf and mute, and everybody is astounded by this, and it's a great thing. Jesus tells everybody to be quiet about it, even the man who's been healed to be quiet about it, and he doesn't. Nobody does. They proclaim it, to all ends of the area that Jesus happens to be in. They say he's done all things well. He heals the deaf. He makes the mute speak. All these kinds of things. But Jesus doesn't want a fuss about this. Why? Why doesn't Jesus want a fuss about it? Wouldn't it be great for everyone to know that God is in their midst, healing them left and right? Well, that's because faith is not the product of special effects. Faith is not the product of a whole bunch of little miracles here and there. Hollywood would think that it is, and there's a lot within our church that basically just wants miracle after miracle, apparition after apparition, vision after vision, whatever it is, to prove that there is a God, to prove that there is faith. And those are no way, shape, and form any kind of proofs of anything. Sometimes they're proofs of people's own madness, or their own inability to deal with things. But this is not what faith is based upon. It's not based upon the spectacle. It's not based upon the miracle. It's not based upon, all the healings and things that Jesus does, which is why in Mark's gospel, Jesus keeps telling everybody to be silent about these things, to listen to what they more deeply point to. And that is a God who walks with them, a God who cares about them, a God who makes all things new. That is the source of faith. That is the source of belief. Not seeing something tangible, but understanding and knowing in our hearts that there is a God who always will be there for us. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.